Hey everybody, it's Captain Kyle and I have the set of trains from Robots in Disguise 2001. We have Midnet Express, we have Railspike, and we have Rapid Run. And they merge into RACER, which doesn't sound like a great merge name, but we'll get to that. But I got these, they are not sealed in box, so I guess I don't need you. But I'm gonna go through each one, vehicle mode, robot mode, to then combined mode, and see how cool these trains are, and if they would fit in your collection. Be right back. So these are the Robots in Disguise versions of these guys. They were released a year previously in Japan, so whichever way you look at it, they're old enough to drink. However, in Japan, they were called J4, J5, and J7, which is apparently based on the type of train they are, and they merged into JRX. In the US, they decided for Midnet Express, Railspike, and Rapid Run to merge into RACER, which is a little bit better. They also had some problems in Japan with the paint apps. I had the originals, I had these as well. They were sold years ago, but I managed to reacquire them at Fanboy Expo Knoxville. I got a good deal. So let's go through them. So since I don't need to pop them out knife-wise, I'm just going to remove them from their boxes, but I'm not going to toss these boxes like shit because, you know, they're nice boxes. And the price I paid took into account the boxes, so. But you can see all three trains here. This one is Railspike. This one is Midnet Express. And this one is Rapid Run. It's hard to keep track of their names because they're not as intuitive as, say, Hook or Bone Crusher, or even the Aerialbot names are easier to remember. And I would have to go back and rewatch the cartoon, but I can't remember them having really interesting personalities that made them very distinctive. And their names are kind of long and unwieldy. But the trains are very cool. So we're gonna go through them one at a time. I guess we'll start with Rapid Run and rapidly run through his vehicle mode, and we'll run through all of them. Now, the nice thing about these is they have wheels. Now, you have to remember what kind of time this was, because this was right after Beast Wars and Beast Machines, and while Beast Machines was going on in the US, in Japan, they decided that they wanted to go back to vehicles, but they actually put the Autobots against the Predacons. So Megatron was like a 6-changer who became a 10-changer as Galvatron, and, well, actually they had different names, Fire Convoy and Gigatron, but they were brought over the next year into the US because they figured Japan made a cartoon, why don't we just use that? But this was back to actual vehicles. I mean, yes, we had the Machine Wars, which was kind of an abortive attempt to, well, it was actually fulfilling a promise made at a BotCon by a Hasbro rep. And other than some vehicles that were G2 repaints and re-releases and some Machine Wars stuff and even some G2 unreleased stuff that was used in Beast Wars 2 when the Deathtrons were mainly vehicles and the Cybertrons were actually, like Maximals, animals. This was the first brand new molds, brand new vehicles type thing, and the Car Robot Brothers are awesome. It's a very awesome line. Not saying it doesn't have its weaknesses, but at the time it was incredible. So here with Rapid Run, he falls over if you push him. This is the US one. He's got the big Autobot symbol here. It's got wheels on the bottom. Doesn't have a lot of kibble showing. These are his arms, but you can't really tell. And it's a solid train. It rolls. It does have a hook here. This is actually his missile that goes into his weapon. I don't know what you can hook it up to. We don't necessarily have cars that came with it. But if you did find a compatible train car, you could hook it in and he could pull it along. So a very neat train. Trains are a lot bigger in Japan than they are in the US. That's why they had Raiden and the Trainbots, and now we have Team Bullet Train, only because Japan made them and they needed to fill up the line. And I'm sure people at Hasbro were like, they made trains, yes, we do have them here and people will buy them. And this is actually a pretty expensive set, so that's Rapid Run. I don't know why this one is called Midnet Express, why they decided on that name. It's a very bright colored train. Looks like something that would be not going at night. Though I suppose the bright colors could actually help with the whole not getting hit at night. He also has part of his weapon here as the hook. It rolls nicely. Nice bullet train, big Autobot symbol. And on the bottom, you can't really see, I don't know what the bottom of a train looks like. I have not had that experience of going under one, especially, you know, while it's in motion. So I don't know if that would give anything away, but they're trains. I mean, they do have wheels as far as moving around outside of being a train. You know, outside of the rails that a train would normally be on. I imagine they could roll down a road, but not really equipped to handle bumps or, you know, especially speed bumps. That would fuck this shit up. But again, Midnet Express, a nice train. And then there is Railspike, which I think a Railspike is supposed to be a bad thing. I've noticed this one's a little bit loose. It is used, so I can't complain too much. And I did get a really good deal, like 2/3 of the price that he was asking for the set. And I would like to say it's because I'm Captain Kyle of Toy Spotlite, but he didn't know that for anything. So it had nothing to do with fame, just had to do with negotiation. But again, rolls pretty easily. It's got the wheels on the bottom. These are actually on the arms, I think. One of them is on the arms. Yeah, it's the arms in the front and has the wheels, and they actually don't align. So if this was on a track, it would really suck. The weapon that just fell off, this is his weapon. It actually is supposed to light up. The batteries are dead, and I actually haven't opened up the cover. I'm afraid to. There might be acid batteries in there, but one of these days I'll remove them and see if we can get this to work. But for the purposes of this, I'm more concerned about transformation. So they're all trains. I mean, there's not too much you can do other than roll them around in vehicle mode. And if you find some kind of cars that would hook up to the hooks in the back, I guess you could do that, but they're trains. All right, let's check out the robot modes. So what was definitely nice in the entire Car Robots / Robots in Disguise line is pretty much all the weapons were stored, except the Spy Changers, which were basically G2 GoBots recolored at first. Some of the later US ones were a little different and did have weapon storage. But the big ones pretty much had weapon storage. The Predacons certainly did, the Car Robot brothers did, and these guys did too. And so what's interesting is a portion of the train with the windows is actually his weapon, which unfolds, and has a place where you can put the missile. So it's kind of a riot shield with a missile there, or some kind of, you know, projection or club. Maybe we can put it as a club in his other hand. So the transformations are not difficult, though I have to say this guy is a little stiff. That's what she said. And the proportions on these robots aren't exactly humanoid, and the heads can pop off without any warning, but they pop right back on. So one trick that I found out with getting his head out, if it is popping, is you can actually, it's part of the transformation into JRX, I think, AKA Rail Racer. So you can turn it around, you can get the head out, and then you can put it back. Because this is basically his robot mode. Pull out his legs. He's got very long legs, very short torso. I'm kind of envious. My family all has long torsos. And there he is as a robot. So he is pretty posable. He can actually do pretty much a toes up Jean-Claude Van Damme. His wheels here on the back, you'd have to kind of fold up in order to really get it down, but he bends at the knee. He's got ball joints, so he can do a bunch of kicks. Doesn't feel as smooth as some of the newer stuff, but still definitely a cool robot mode. His arms are on ball joints, so they can swivel in a number of directions. He has elbow joints. His fists do not twist, but you can kind of bend them at the wrist a little bit like that. I don't know why you'd want to, but you could. His head actually does turn with some limited mobility because of, it's on a ball joint, but because of the back of his head and the way it's in here, it can't turn like all the way around. So he can look a little bit from side to side. He does twist at the waist. It's a very high waist. And again, I think that's due to the transformation into Rail Racer. But he is able to have some very dynamic poses. He can be holding out a shield. You can even move it like this and turn it into like a gun. So it's like, oh, you can't blast me, and then I'm gonna shoot you, you know. Which is an ideal situation, actually. Not getting shot and being able to shoot the other person. His back doesn't have a ton of kibble. He's got the Autobot symbol on the back. The nice thing about this is you don't have an identifying Autobot symbol on the front. So if he runs into Autobots who don't know him, they might not recognize him as an Autobot until he's like, hey, well, check out my tramp stamp. It's a little high for a tramp stamp, but you know what I mean. So that is Rapid Run. You know, I keep forgetting these guys' names, and I have one of the boxes over here so I can look again. But let's take a look at, we'll go with Railspike. So Railspike, you remove the weapon from the back. You have to like push things around a little bit, take out the handle. Pretty neat weapon. Transformation again is pretty simple. In this case, he doesn't have any compartments that come off. You just kind of pull it down and actually turn the legs around, and his front nose opens up. Now, little sneak peek, there's the head of Rail Racer, but it's actually his chest piece. And you take his head, which is spring-loaded, and you turn it around. And he's got like a skirt right there. Turn these forward, bring out the arms, make sure they're facing the right way, thumbs on top. And there he is. And like I said, this weapon is supposed to light up. It's got the light piping down it, but it doesn't light up. You probably wouldn't be able to see it in these lights anyway. So there he is, Railspike. And again, pretty posable. Legs, he can do a full Jean-Claude Van Damme. Bends at the knees, side kicks, front kicks. None of these have ankle swivels, by the way. That's kind of a much newer invention, but he's still able to spread his legs and stand pretty stably in a lot of positions. His arms, well, in order to go at the shoulder, you have to move this entire thing, so that kind of limits him a little bit. But the arms are on ball joints. They go in a lot of directions, bends at the elbow. His fists do not twist. And his waist, here's the thing. There's no twisting at the waist. It's just not built into the transformation. I think nowadays they sometimes allow in the design for a robot to twist at the waist, even if it's not part of the transformation, but in those days, still a cool bot, but no twisting at the waist. And the head can turn, it's actually part of the transformation, so he can turn his head all the way around and be possessed if he wanted to be. It is getting close to Halloween. But again, sturdy figure, cool looking bot. His torso doesn't seem quite as short as Rapid Run's, but he also doesn't have this big boob sticking out quite as much. He has this, well, okay, this could be a boob, but it's really not a good one. That's a boob. And finally, we have Midnet Express, who has a very interesting transformation. Now, this part that I'm pulling off the back is part of his weapon. The other part is stored inside. You have to lift up, and it's actually got these two little holes here that go into these posts and stores inside. So even when you take the weapon off, there's no missing compartment. You know, it's just missing the hook on the back. And this has a more interesting transformation because he doesn't transform like symmetrically, and he's got some big ass feet, as you're gonna see. So you flip these both up, and actually his arms are in here, in here, in here. You pull his legs apart, ow, that had to hurt. He's doing a full Jean-Claude Van Damme before I'm even putting him into the robot mode. You have to kind of twist and push down the legs. And like I said, the feet are kind of big. So you pull out, twist around, and there's one foot. And you know what they say about Autobots with big feet? They don't wear big shoes. So his torso is very short, like uber short. You flip that around to bring out the head, which is on this little swivel that's a little stiff. I don't think they transform this a lot. But there's his head. Take out the arms, like so. He's got shoulder pads, because, you know, he really likes the 80s. And there he is. Now his weapon here, you actually kind of assemble, and it has a missile, which actually fires pretty well for an American released product. So there he is. As I showed you before, he does a full Jean-Claude Van Damme. He does have knees, but they're very high knees. His shins are like huge. He's not in human proportions at all, but they're robots. They don't need to be in human proportion. When you're moving him by the shoulder, his shoulder pads move, bends at the elbow. The toes, you know, you can kind of point them and move them a little bit, which a bonus, I guess. Don't know why you want to. And his head turns all over the place. Twisting does not happen. There is no twisting at the waist. So only one of these guys can do the twist, but you know, they're not into Earth music that much. Blaster is, but. So he's an interesting looking robot, but still a cool guy. I'm trying to see if I can get his legs to kind of even off. Ah, had to extend the other foot a little bit. But there he is in all his glory. The back, there's not a ton of kibble, but those legs, man, he could be a rocket. And I could shoot the missile off the table. If Sky was here, she'd be going after it. I'll get that later. So really easy to accidentally shoot the missile because the trigger is on the bottom of the gun, right there. All right, so what's interesting, because Hasbro was trying to save money, is the instructions for these guys that came in each box were actually for all of them and how to merge them together. So that's kind of interesting. It was just a cost savings. I don't remember if I don't think the Car Robot Brothers had the same thing. And yes, I call them the Car Robot Brothers. They came out first. They're not exactly called the same thing in the US, but fuck it. But now I know what you want to see. You want to see the first combiner of vehicles since I think the last one was in G2 before this. It was like G2 Bruticus. So, Team Bullet Train merge into Rail Racer.
Bullet Fusion Mode! Triple Power! Rail Racer!
So there he is in combined mode, Rail Racer. Honestly, if they were going to give him a merged name, Rail Racer isn't what I would go with. Rail King might work. Rail Lord, anything, because Rail Racer just sounds like the name of any of these guys. If I had told you that Railspike was actually Rail Racer and they merged into Railspike, if you didn't know the character, you would have believed me. It doesn't sound like a Titan's name, whereas Superion is a Titan's name, Predaking, Chronicon, those you're like, yeah, those are merged bots. But this guy, Rail Racer, just doesn't cut it. Now, it shows in the instructions that you can put the weapons together and put them in his hands. I can't figure out how to attach them to his hands. I tried for a bit. I'll probably figure it out at some point, and you might be smarter than me when it comes to these guys. As far as posability, he's pretty posable for especially a 21 to 22-year-old combiner. I mean, the legs can move in all kinds of directions. He's a little bit top heavy because he's got two bots on the top. The head can turn, and the arms, what's neat about this guy is the hands are actually inside. So there's really no add-on parts that you need. If you have the guys, you can merge them. And you can get some posability out of him. You can move the arms back and forth, though it does push against the bot in his back. He's got a little, you know, Roman skirt to protect his knees, I guess, or the side of his knees. But he is a very cool combiner. He does have a tendency to get a little bit loose. And I like the fact that, you know, this sliding in type transformation is kind of going away. Of course, he can pop apart pretty easily. You also got to be careful of that. You can pop them back together pretty quickly, and this back piece is supposed to snap him in and make that less likely, but he can still very easily pop off again. So for a combiner of the time, he's not a bad combiner overall. I mean, he's only 3, which we haven't seen that since Road Caesar. Well, we've seen it since in Armada. But yeah, he's a little top heavy, a little awkward looking, but still a cool combiner. Now, these guys go for a good chunk of change separately and getting the set. So I'm gonna put links to eBay. Maybe you can find a good deal. And it would be really cool if in Legacy, they decided to reissue these guys. I mean, if anybody needs a new version, you know, these guys would. But as far as the awkward robot is now, I am gonna figure out how to attach his weapons. There must be something that I'm missing, you know, with putting these things on here. Some hook. You would think there would be some post in here, but, and obviously the missile's still over there. So you can kind of push his shoulders all the way forward, but I don't think that helps very much. Makes him look like I'm trying to be Optimus Primal. And then he falls apart again. So it's a cool set, and I would definitely recommend if you could find it at a reasonable price, or if you're Transformers obsessed like, I don't know, I am, then you might want to get yourself a set of these Trainbots, because they are very cool. But the combiner's a little bit awkward. But still, a set worth getting. I don't know why I'm just gonna put them back in a merge form and put them on my combiner shelf. But if you get a chance, get these guys. And if you want to go really old school with combiners, check out our Superion one over here. It's a reissue counterfeit, but you should check out that video. And of course, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, all the stuff. If you'd like to do a super thanks, that'd be great. And we will see you next time. As always, have fun and good hunting.